Here is Vernon Howard.
A sad remark was once made. The sad remark was that when this world was created, an instruction manual didn't come with it. We're going to do something about that. We're going to discover, first of all, that the instruction manual that is needed for inner transformation must be vertical, not horizontal. You must look upward, not sideways. That in itself is a great advancement for you, because living on this earth, the earthly body, earthly ambitions, and lots of earthly sorrows, we tend to think of the earthly level as the exclusive only level. We get used to looking sideways instead of looking up. And when you invite someone to take the upward glance to see the higher and only solution, when you invite someone to do that, they hesitate, they balk, because they're not used to doing it, and it seems so strange. We're all so used to looking around on our own earthly level for answers, for relief, solutions. And if we look for them on our level, we're going to find only our level and not what our heart and what our spirit really needs. You would do well to keep in mind that you're going to have to make a personal, an individual effort to look up. I'm speaking inwardly, of course. You're going to have to give yourself one jolt after another in order to depart from looking on your level out there for the solution in money, for the solution in more friends or a change of residence. You're going to have to break the habit of inner sleep, shatter it, and give yourself a new experience. And if it jolts you, that's good. That's a good jolt. It will jolt you awake. Look upward and just see what happens next. When you look to another human being, to a human product like money or fame and fortune, you always know that you're going to get some kind of a response. That is, if you get the money, you're going to feel rich. You get the man or you get the woman, you're going to feel as if you have a romance or companionship. When you look up, you must have no expectations at all as what's going to happen to you. You must not know what's going to come down to you. If you predict it in advance, if you know what it's going to be, you're just predicting another round of your own thoughts and sadness, which you are very sad about leaving. Think of that phrase. I am sad about leaving my sadness, because it was always something I could resort to, I can turn to as a friend. I can always weep. And when I get tired of weeping, I can find another resort, another resource. I can lash out at someone for what they did to me, and all the time you are horizontal, and that's where you will stay unless you get so tired of playing the subtle self-deceptive game with yourself that you say, I'm going to make individual effort with individual responsibility. I said individual, personal, you. I'm going to do it for myself. Now, that phrase taken in the right way at the start, can lead you finally, listen to this, when you say, I'm going to do it all by myself, it will lead you to the point, guess what? Where you see you can't do anything for yourself or by yourself, and you must reach that stage. That is the only thing that's going to make you want to look up higher than yourself. Nevertheless, the virtues of individual effort, individual work, self-responsibility, they are virtues, and you should start using them. You should start valuing them more. Let's see, what can I do for myself this time that I used to ask someone else to do? I want you to notice, in daily ordinary tasks, down at the office, at home, how often you take the easy way out. I'm talking about earthly things now. Dear, where's the pair of scissors? Why don't you go look for the pair of scissors? In your whole life, it never occurred to you to go look for them. You want the easy way. He'll get the scissors for me. What's he do if he refuses you? Now you have to do the work yourself. Do it on your own initiative. I am very, very serious. I want you to know that you have the habit of letting the other man, the other woman do it, hoping that you won't have to put a personal effort in it. For now, you're gonna start. You're gonna start right on earth here in order to find a way to reach heaven. You're going to have to allow heavenly influences, powers, and be receptive to them. If you want to reach heaven, you can't take the Chattanooga choo-choo. You have to take the vertical step. Now, question. How many of you men were once a boy? Question. All right. Oh, we're going to get right down to it. As a boy, I'm illustrating a point. As a boy, a little boy, do you remember, men, do you remember the first time you had to button your shirt all by yourself? Mama used to do it for you, Papa occasionally. Finally, Mama said, do it yourself. Oh. As children, we're always resisting efforts to do something for ourselves. And so you struggled with it. You used your fingers, which are pretty thick. And the first 5 times, you know what happened? You men will remember this. You buttoned the shirt, and you got it all just right, you thought, and you found out at the bottom there was an empty buttonhole down there. And one side of the shirt was longer than the other. The point being this. Spiritually, as well as in buttoning your shirt. Oh, by the way, how many of you men got it by the time you were 18? No. Whether it's your clothing or anything else, we have to learn from experience. And I'll tell you something absolutely fascinating. For the first 30 years of you working spiritually, you're going to run into tens of thousands of problems you didn't even know you had. You're going to know shockingly that you're walking in a circle instead of walking upward. And as evidence of walking in a circle, have you noticed how you meet the same experiences, the same frustrations, oh yes, and the same feelings of aching loneliness, even when you're with other people or have got something exciting to do? Human beings spend their whole lives keeping loneliness at bay, keeping it back, not wanting to suffer from it. But listen to this. Loneliness, which is a false state, by the way, a feeling of loneliness, of isolation, of being left out, and being apart from things, from the so-called fun of life. Loneliness is painful whether you see it or not. A wolf in his cave, hidden from the public, is still a vicious wolf. he comes out, he's still a vicious wolf. But if you will work on yourself to where you can know that you're lonely, you know it consciously, you can see it. You can sit at home some night and you feel empty and the TV is boring and you wonder if there's ever going to be an ending to the heartache. If you can see that loneliness, just look at it, watch it circulate throughout you. You could have your first clue as to the right thing to do about it, which is to not believe in it. I didn't say push it away. I said do the opposite of it. Let it overwhelm you, not fighting it anymore, not turning on the TV, not arguing with yourself over something. I'll tell you some spiritual magic. I just picked loneliness. You can pick any other negative state that you want. When loneliness is allowed to come up from the surface of your being, with all the force it wants, you let it overwhelm you, but you know that it's overwhelming, and I'll tell you, it will vanish forever. Now, if you're lonely, you know what you can do. And you know what you can't do. You're not going to explain it away anymore. You're not going to pretend that the next boyfriend is going to do it, or the next religious idea is going to do it, or the next TV sports program is going to. You're going to understand that you don't understand loneliness and the tremendous heartache that goes with it and the fear that goes with it. I'm going to say it one more time. It is an absolute fact that if you really want to get rid of the heartache of feeling isolated, of feeling left out of life, I put that all in the one word, loneliness. If you really want that more than you want anything else in your mind and in your emotions, if you want it, you can have it. How? Right back again. Individual means you, not the crowd, not the group, not the mob that shouts out its slogans. Individual effort. Let's see. Effort, work. Someone once said there are 5 ways to improve yourself without work, but nobody knows what they are. Individual exerting of yourself, looking up, will finally end in you losing your love for sadness, loneliness, isolation, your love for grief. If you allow yourself, that is, dissolve your egotistical notions that you know what it's all about and you have the answers. If you allow that egotism to be defeated, then you were out of the picture in something higher than you, something vertical. Something vertical will come down to you, and you will know that this is the answer, and you will know it's the answer. Now, you can be in a room of 1,000 people or in your office with 20 people, and you will never ever divide yourself, me and them. You won't say that person is my friend and that person is my enemy. You see, you've divided the world because your mind is divided, as the intellect always does. And when you understand all this, you look at the whole world, and you can understand bad people. Oh, as a matter of fact, you'll understand bad people for the first time. You don't understand them now. It's not clear to you. And you'll understand that all you have to do is have understanding. Picture a huge mountain, real high. I'm going to set a scene in front of you so that you can see it clearly and then see the spiritual application to it. Huge mountain. At the base of this large mountain, all around the base of it, circling the entire mountain on the ground at the base, is a path. So we have a path that if you start one place at the bottom of the mountain and walk around it, you'll come back to where you started. There's also a vertical path. This vertical path starts at any point of the horizontal path and goes upward, goes up the side of the mountain. So there's an intersection there. And at the top of the mountain is a new place to live. A place that's not at all like what's happening on the level of the path, which is what this sick and weary world is. It's not like this world at all. And that world, by the way, is this world on the peak, on the mountaintop. That's the world that you can have as a diligent human being who makes effort, who takes self-responsibility. That's the world that you can have within you. Now let's find out how to do it. Do you have the picture? Path circling the bottom of the mountain, another vertical path up from the bottom path to the top of the mountain. At the intersection is a man, and he has some sort of a uniform on that distinguishes him as an official of some kind, a man who knows something. He's standing at the intersection, and here comes humanity. Here comes all the people you know and have met, and people who are way down the road 10 miles. All the bottom path is populated with people, and they are weary travelers. Not a bad description of the average human being, right? A weary traveler, with a heavy pack on his back, and not knowing where he's going, which he hides with phony smiles and cocktail parties and all the rest of the nonsense. So here are thousands of people circling the path. And the official who stands at the intersection there is very apparent, very plain. And as I said, he looks like someone who might know something. Anybody could ask him questions. And some of them did. Some of the weary travelers came up to him and they said, "Sir, I noticed that you have a uniform on and you apparently an official of some kind. Can you please tell us how to get to the top of the mountain?" And he said, "Well, certainly, I can tell you how to get up there." He answered instantly, "What you have to do, sir, is stop walking in circles. What you have to do is, when you come around to this intersection here, which you're at right now, all you have to do is notice that there is an upward path and take it. You have to take it. It's not enough to look at it and say, "Oh, that looks interesting." I told you that was a huge mountain, and it was many, many miles to go the complete circle. It takes a long time. But every time along the way, they meet friends, stop and talk with them a little bit. Familiar places, their boyhood home. Think for a minute, for just a second, of your boyhood, girlhood situations, your hometown, your high school. What was the name of your high school? You about ready to sing the school song now? See, that sort of familiarity is the snare, because you can pull so many experiences out of it. Remember all the nice things they said about you in your yearbook? Everyone wrote in it, "You're going to be a great man someday," and you swallowed it whole. See, I give this as an example of how familiarity seems to give us reality. But I'll tell you something, and I want you to tell yourself something. The next time you get out your high school yearbook, how many years has it been now? Maybe you don't want to think of that. You go through it page by page and look at all the little scribblings and scrawlings in it. And of course, you're especially going to look at your picture first. Huh? And I want you to notice the conflict that it puts you in. I want you to notice at the same time you get it, hey, that's me. No, it isn't you. It never was. But you think it's you because, hey, that's my face, has to be me. No, you're not your physical self. You're not the person who won the 100-yard dash in the track meet or scored 5 touchdowns in one football game in high school. That's not you at all. That's an experience. That's a memory. But we're so careless. We take it as being an individual. I take it as being a personality. Take it as being someone I can resort to talk to think about, to glorify in. But it isn't that at all. Here's the point. It's not you. It's a physical body. It has your particular name. But you are something else. All right, on with the story. People asked the man, how can I get to the top of the mountain? He told them what to do. He told them, whenever you talk to me, you're going to go around a lot more times. Whenever you come and talk to me, I want you to remember what I told you. You're going to have to make a very special effort to see your love of the world. How you and the physical world, the social world, the financial world, the world of sex, the world of romance, I want you to see how that world is in you and that is the enemy. Well, human beings are pretty thick-headed, pretty hard to get through. You know what they did? Most of the people did. Thank you, sir, for your advice. I appreciate you telling me that. And off they plodded to make another round of the mountain. Shuffling around, not off to Buffalo either, but in a very weary circle. Are you responding to that? Are we getting close to home on this? You know it is. Now, this is not negative. It's negative to think it's negative. It's good to see the bad. If you want to get healed, you have to see that you have a need of healing. So they plodded around and around. Every once in a while, something different would happen. Most of them just went on by, talked to their friends 2 miles down the road, loved their sadness. But every once in a while, and I want you to be that once in a while, every once in a while, someone would come up to the intersection there, and they would remember that of the thousands of times they came to the intersection, over the period of time, they dimly remembered that the official was there, and they dimly remembered the advice he had given, which is to stop where you are. Not another step. If you go past the intersection, you have to go way around again. You know very well that you have to do something different. You have to take individual responsibility. You have to take personal effort to do something new, something different. I'll tell you how it will work. You come up to the intersection, and oh, are you tired? That is good if you are tired of fighting, tired of arguing, tired of resisting. But you're so weary. You're so weary, you're going to dare to discover if there is an intelligence higher than your own. You look at that thought. Who do you know who's smarter than you? Know anyone at all? This is something to look at now. Because I'm telling you, I'm not saying look to your friend or neighbor down the street for advice. I'm asking you to examine and see how you have to keep telling yourself that you're already at supreme intelligence. But it's not intelligent to be tired, to be in heartache. It's a lack of intelligence to suffer. Real intelligence never suffers. All right. So this man, hopefully you, comes up and he has to make the decision. He's worried of what it's going to cost him. He doesn't know it's going to cost him his sickness. He doesn't know it's going to cost him his heart-aching loneliness. And he doesn't understand that. He stops and he takes a deep breath and he looks up and he turns and listen to this. Oh, how beautifully and rightly encouraging and inspiring. He takes that one first step up. And I tell you, at that minute, all the power and the beauty and the spiritual forces that are on top of that mountain, way up, miles and miles up, when he takes that first step, all those marvelous heavenly spiritual forces come down to make themselves acquainted with him, and he knows they are different from the forces of this world. He knows it. You will know it. Absolutely you will know it. You'll never lose it. Impossible. That means that you're going to take the next step. Now you know what's right. You know the difference between right and wrong. You know the difference between religion and spirituality. You know the difference between false knowledge and the truth. Back to this decision point. This is the most critical, most valuable decision of your life. With you taking this information that you've heard, taking it, and then allowing, permitting it to act on you. It will act on you where you can't act on yourself. It will act on you. I'm going to use a word. I don't use this word very often, but now is the time to use it. It will act, this higher power, if you yield to it, if you let it even turn you in the right direction, vertically, up the mountain, that will be your first knowledge of what it really means to have love. It's a loving force. It cares for you. It's the only thing that cares for you. People can't care for you. They're too worried about themselves. What comes from the high mountain can reach you if you make that one turn, and that's all you have to do from then on, because you know you've made the right connection. You know you're in the right direction. All you have to do is just stay there and continue to ask it to give you what it wants to give you. That's a right prayer. That's a right desire. You don't even have to call it a prayer. That's a right request. Heaven, help me more. It will do that every time. How many of you had your feelings hurt as a child? How many had your feelings hurt as a teenager? How many know what I'm going to ask next? As an adult, how many had your feelings hurt? How many can't go through a single day without being assaulted in one way or another by hurt feelings? You know the answer to that. What a different kind of a day you would have if you could go through the 24 hours without being hurt, injured, emotionally, if you didn't have the roller coaster up and down swing of moods and feelings. You would have a new life if you could go through not just one day, but every single day without your feelings getting hurt. Now, I will ask you why you haven't pursued that idea up till now. the rewards, the wealth of getting rid of hurt feelings is so enormous. Why are you spending all that time making all that money, or having all those romances, or all those picnics, having all those pleasures? Why are you spending your time trying to find something that'll make you feel good when a contrary force is so alive and so active in there to make you feel bad, and that's the one that wins? I'm going to tell you something this afternoon, and I want you to write it down somewhere in your mind on a piece of paper. And you won't understand it at the start, but I want you to get it down in your mind as a beginning of a new kind of an understanding of yourself, so that when you don't get the praise, or you do lose that person, when that experience happens to you, you will not automatically and mechanically fall into getting hurt. Look, listen to me. Remember the following, and never forget it, in spite of what you call evidence to the contrary. You are not your hurt feelings. That's it. And you say that to yourself. I am not my hurt feelings, but you think you are, because you identify with the pain of the insult to your good reputation. How many of you are always feeling unappreciated, sobbing? How many of you have precious, darling feelings that get injured every other minute? You know you do. All right. This is tremendous. And I want you to do some tremendous investigating and thinking about it in order to understand just exactly what that means, and we'll go into it. I am not that hurt feeling. Well, how come it hurts? It does. Tears you apart. You want to go out and bop someone, or go off in a corner and cry. Why do I feel bad about anything? Because you identify with that feeling because it seems to give you a sense of life. It gives you a false sense of existence. It gives you something to do with yourself. How do you never know what to do with yourself anytime anyway? We're going to go into that a little bit later in the talk too. And you're going to go away from here with enough material to think about for a long time. And again, if you allow it to enter into you, no pushing it away, no hesitation, just let it come in, it will work for you. But on with this idea about hurt feelings. I want you to know that being unhappy is a bad habit you've picked up, and nothing more than that. Again, you see, you're so worried that if you can't cry, if you can't feel cheated, if you can't feel left out, then what will this person in me do, say, think, feel? Who will I be? Well, let me tell you something. Those awful, racking, mangling hurts and anguishes and glooms and depressions that you have, let me tell you something, and don't you ever forget it. They do not tell you who you are. Oh, you didn't know that you took them as giving you an identity. My boyfriend left me. Well, maybe you should cheer instead of being sad. See, now you've got a self-reference, haven't you? I give you a challenge. The next time anything bad of any time happens to you, I'm not talking about physical injuries, things like that, obviously. We're talking about psychological, spiritual, mental areas. Next time something comes to you and you were just about ready to feel bad, feel sorrowful, feel gloomy about it, just don't do it. I'll tell you what will happen. You will have taken the first step toward being an authentic human being who has a spirit of reality, who has a higher spirit than your mind can ever give you, than this world can ever give you. You will have the beginning of something that very few of your friends are ever going to work hard to find or even be interested in. But when you make that first faint effort, you might fail 5,000 times. You make that first effort to not enjoy being indignant, being persecuted. Say, I am not going to try to find an identity in being left out. I am simply not going to go along with that spurious, false, punishing emotion anymore, just to see what happens. Just to see what happens in place of the old experience. You know what happened in the other case. Sometimes people even came around and, oh, poor darling, oh, I'm the center of attention. You know very well how many things you do to attract attention to yourself. Why do you need to attract attention? Because you don't know who you are, that's why, and you're trying to prove it. And you never will prove it that way. New experience. It's like 6 people standing at the edge of a pond and throwing rocks out into the pond, in the water. And there's 6 vibrations of the water, isn't there, as the water spreads around the stone. What happens when one circular vibration of the water meets another one? They bump, don't they? People angrily throws the stones in the ponds and those vibrations meet. That simple little illustration, angry people throwing stones into the water and meeting each other's vibrations, clashes, quarrelings. What if you didn't throw a stone in the water? You would not be circulating the wrath and the conflict and the heartache and the sorrow and the uncertainty. You know what that would make you? That would make you a nice man. That would make you a nice woman. And oh, I tell you, there's nothing nicer than living with a nice person. How about a little introspection on that one? How do you like living with yourself? How do you like looking in the mirror? Every day it gets a little worse, doesn't it? Yeah. I tell you, and I want you to tell yourself over the period of time, I tell you that when you have the spirit of truth, which you can have, you'll be nice without ever thinking about it. Because niceness isn't intellectual, it is spiritual. Oh, yes. Yes, we're talking about spiritual things today. We're talking about something that is not a part of your ordinary daily existence of earning money and having sex and having barbecues in the backyard. We're talking about you having a secret life that you never had before, but you have it now, a secret life. And on all those relatives around the barbecue, all they can think about is how soon the French fries are going to be done. And will there be enough ketchup? You'll be walking around that backyard with 20 or 30 other people, and you know what you'll be doing? I'll tell you what. You will know that you're walking around that yard. So you can see the food being cooked. You can see the people shouting over there and having fun, what they call fun. And you see one man, he has a real hard face, and you know that he's got a hard heart, and that's the reason he has a hard face. And you are not involved in a single one of the hurt feelings that they are sending out in a circle in that room or outside. This is what is called being a free human being. These are virtues and powers, and I'm reading the word that describes the virtue and power, and you can have it, because when you have the word, you can then go beyond the word itself, the sound and the writing of it, and live the word, live the meaning of it. 20 very valuable words in your spiritual dictionary. Give one, as I read it, a little thought before I go on to the next one. Attention, quietness, receptive, honesty, authentic, simplicity, release, persistence, spiritual, relaxation, healthy, choice, independence, daring, perception, logic, sincerity, reveal, awaken, pleasantness. I'm going to tell you a spiritual parable. See how many of these words and virtues you can find in it. And the story I'm going to tell you can be the biography of any man or woman who is dissatisfied with his life. How many are dissatisfied with your life? You know you are. You have so many questions and so few answers. Listen to this and you'll find the answers. Once upon a time there was a very sad man, and he loved to get his feelings hurt. He knew that like attracts like, and he would quarrel so that people would quarrel back with him, including his wife. And that was his struggle, that was his sorrow. And the poor man just didn't know any better. And worse than that, he never ever questioned his condition. He never ever said, I just wonder if I might find something higher than myself, because it hurts so bad. But then he said, hey, I love this hurt. I can do something with it. It gives me a direction. I can bless somebody. Time came when it finally came to him that he had better do something about his life before it got any later. So he looked around, searched around. He heard there was a certain wise man who lived over in a certain area. So he went to the wise man and poured out his heart and his story to him and asked him what he could do about his sad, directionless, and meaningless life. The wise man said, well, certainly there's an answer. Where have you been? I've been here for centuries. Where have you been? The man said, I'll tell you what you have to do. There's a place called Garden of True Wisdom, and it's in a remote part of a mountain on a plateau some distance from here. And it's going to take a little work for you to go there, but if you go there, this Garden of True Wisdom, your answers will be given to you. Everything your heart wants, not your head, not your pocketbook, but everything your heart wants will be there for you. Oh, he thanked the wise man, he asked for directions, and he put a pack on his back and supplied himself as he should. And it was a pretty rough trip. Go way back into the deepest part of the peaks and valleys. Long journey. That is symbolic of you having to make a resolve to keep going no matter what happens. No matter how hard the task is, you're going to have to put your love for truth, your love for purity, for innocence, your love for revelation. Remember the list. You're going to have to put your love, you're going to have to put your love for cleanliness first of all. That'll keep you going. So the man did go, and went, and he arrived. He arrived at the plateau. And there it was, a beautiful place, rivers and waterfalls, and greenery, just a magnificent splendor of nature. A million miles, seemed like it was a million miles above this earth. Unspoiled nature. So when he got there was paths and there were benches, and he was all alone. Oh yes. Why was he all alone? Because there is something in you that senses that your task is your task, and your husband can't do it for you, and your wife can't do it for you, and mama and papa can't do it for you, and the book can't do it for you, and that teacher can't do it for you. You have to allow God, truth, reality to do it for you. Oh, he was so excited. Because the wise man had told him, you go there, you'll find the truth. And then guess what happened to him after a few days of being there? He got restless. No one was throwing rocks at him. He was all alone there, peaceful, beautiful. But he got restless. Now, why would he get restless in a beautiful, quiet place? You know why? Because he brought his restlessness with him from big town to the place on top of the mountain. And he began to get nervous. I am describing to you a very, very critical spiritual experience. And you listen carefully to it so that when you arrive at this place, you'll know what to do. He looked around, wanted someone to talk to, nobody to talk to, no one's shoulder to cry on, no one to brag that he won a gold cup in the race, boat race. He felt lonely and isolated, and he felt that he should do something about it. So he went all the way back to the wise man and asked him again, sir, I found the garden of pure truth that you told me about. I found it. But what am I supposed to do there? Admittedly, it's a marvelous place to be. Skies, beautiful, clouds, everything beautiful. But what am I supposed to do there? You listen. You listen to the answer that wise man gave to him. He said, don't fear having nothing to do. Oh, that terrified him. He said, you're the wise man, I'm the idiot. So I'll go back and try it again. So the second trip, went back again. And he sat down on the bench. Now the wise man said, don't do anything. I know some of you I know it's beginning to seep through a little bit. Some of you are getting a little bit ahead. That's all right, that's good. You're responding before I say it. That's good. I hope you respond after I say it. He sat down on one of the nice, pretty benches they had there. Now, the wise man said, don't do anything to solve my problems. Don't do anything to be happy. Oh, I'll tell you, when you get to this stage where you have obeyed the voice of wisdom which says don't do anything to solve your problems, and you continue to obey that wisdom, your problems will fall away because you will fall away. See? Let's look at it very closely. What do you do when you have hurt feelings? You feel as if life is passing you by. What do? You do something about it. You get an ambition. You get a new friend. You get a new romance. And the love boat turns into a battleship. See, you have learned today. Remember the word reveal in the list? It's been revealed to you that it is your doing of something that wrecks everything. Look. Action is supposed to be intelligent. Shall I pause a little longer on that one? Now look, you know very well in your heart what I'm getting at. Now I want you to bring it up and become more conscious of it. Do you think, have you ever had someone who got you into trouble? How many ever met someone who got you into trouble? You have. To live is to get into trouble. All right. Now, did you expect that person who got you into trouble to save you from the trouble? You may have, and that was the second mistake, wasn't it? Ladies, how about that man? Oh, did you ladies respond to that? Silently, thank heaven. So he sat there, quarreled, got mad, wished he'd never gone to the wise man in the first place. Oh, but thank heaven, heaven would not let him go back to the world again. I hope every single one of you is that place where you can never go back to the world completely again. You'll go back, oh yes. You'll fall down and you'll get angry. And you'll blame other people. And you'll explain to yourself all day long that you don't need new explanations. And all the time, if you keep the honesty on that list, if you keep that honesty foremost, that will prevent you from going all the way back. No, he stayed there. And you know what he did? He did nothing, and that put him through a wrenching experience that finally gave him a soul. Well, when the ego self, when the artificial nature is seen through and dissolved by reality, where's the difficulties? Where's the fear of growing older? Where's the feeling of being left out of exciting sex experiences like all those boys in high school and college and the army and the factory had? And you can't even talk to a girl, you're so shy. And there's an awful lot of rage in there. What if you shattered the artificial self? What would there be left? There would be something that would be, I'm going to say this in several different ways. There would be something that would be a new you. There would be something that you'd never have to keep in place, because truth, reality keeps itself in place, and if you are with it, it keeps you in place. You don't have to worry about anything, past, present, or future, because God has no past or future, but an existence right now, including the moment that you are here in this room. Why are you arguing in the garden? You could be in it right now. You could let sincere association become a revelation. Sincere association. The wise man said, "Sir, if you'll go to the pure garden there, and just stay there. Be motionless. You can walk around physically, of course, but don't try to find anything, but rather let it come to you." If he had done that, and he finally did that, where's all the difficulties that he had before? Now you are here in this room right now, and I'll tell you something beautiful. You have heard the truth. You've heard the facts about your condition. You have heard the way out. You've heard how you can get rid of that self-tormenting person inside of yourself. How you can just be very, very quiet and not try to hold yourself together, not cling to those hurt feelings which seem to give you an identity. Look, reality will give you a guarantee. If you will not again, it's going to take time, you're not going to do it overnight. If you will not cling to that sour spirit, that negative attitude, that egotistical aggression,
if you will simply sit there quietly and not allow it to activate itself inside of you, a miracle of spirituality will happen to you. And I'll tell you what you will then know. You will know not from the book or the teacher, not from the cassette tape, or not from a friend, and not from an organization. I tell you that you will know that God actually exists. And the reason you will know that God actually exists is because you have had contact with him. And you have that contact with truth, something higher. You can use whatever word you want. You had it the moment you allowed sincere association turn into revelation. If you vow in your heart that you want to put an end to the constant harassment of your mind and your spirit, if you make up your mind that you want to know the answer, you will find the garden of truth, and you'll find it inside yourself. And you will go through an experience in which you will, well, how did I get into this? I was happier before. No, you weren't. You are now conscious of how unhappy you were all the time. And now you're facing it. This is the honesty. This is the revelation. This is the daring. This is all those good things put together. One day, that revelation will be as different as the night and the dawn for you. You begin to catch on to things you didn't know existed. And of course you didn't know they existed, but now you do know because they're inside of you. You're feeling them, you're living them. All right. Then, when you catch yourself in any ordinary experience down at the office, with the home, the domestic scene, you find yourself making some kind of a thought, remark, involvement. You find yourself doing something that causes the boomerang to come back and hurt your feelings. You know that that is exactly what is happening, that you threw that boomerang out yourself. You threw it out yourself, not that other person. You did it. Now knowing the source of the difficulty, you know the source of the solution. And above all, you've seen the false solution of pretending that you don't need the solution. I tell you, of all the weights, of all the tons pressing down on the mind and life of a human being, that is one of the heaviest and one of the hardest to crack, because the longer a person continues in self-deceit, the longer he wants to continue, until a point comes where you can't get through to him anymore. I want this talk today to give you an opportunity to get through yourself, so that you can catch a self-deception when it appears. So you can say, uh-oh, there I go again, being the creator of my own difficulty. Anything that hurts me. Well, who else? If you feel wounded, you feel wounded. This is an amazing truth and an astonishing discovery, where you finally see that whatever is bad for you is bad for you. You thought it was good, because now you could blame someone and think you felt better. No, you didn't. You just drove the wound deeper inside of you. Please remember those 20 points. Practice them. See them as you go out into the world. Remember, they are indeed actual positive powers. Let them be your personal powers, and they will change you from an old person in the nature to a new person. In the storm of life, one of the most thunderous fears
is the fear of loss. Men and women unconsciously, unseen by themselves, fear the loss of so many things. See if you can add a few to what I'm going to say as a means of understanding your underground nature, which is necessary to do. The fear of the loss of an opportunity, fear of losing a friend, fear of the loss of your money, on and on. Some people even fear the loss of their good looks. How many of you have nothing to lose? A thorough insight into this surging anxiety is a first major step toward putting it out of your life, because you'll see that it has a false foundation. The false foundation of all fear is a false sense of self. In other words, we identify with an acquired artificial nature. We take that nature as being real, but because it isn't real, anxiety, tension, distress has to go along with it. Now, already you know what to do. You can realize that your sense of failure, defeat, loss, that it can be put out of your life, providing you will do what reality says it is necessary for you to do, which is to so thoroughly, completely see through the old, acquired, useless, artificial nature, so clearly see through it that you don't ever want anything to do with it again. This point of understanding that you can no longer tolerate what you've been tolerating from yourself. This is a marvelous breakthrough, a new revelation, an opening, and it is the beginning of an authentic spiritual experience and life throughout your life. But you have to know first what the and who the unseen enemy is. It must be exposed. You have to be a very brave soldier on the battlefield. Not run away. Don't run away from the battle. You stay right there, and one day, you will know that the Supreme Commander, he will give you the victory that you yourself haven't been able to win up until now. There is accompanying this change of direction from horizontal to vertical. There is with this a very new, special, unique, and marvelous sensing that goes with it. A feeling, a beginning of a superior insight. Just like in the winter, while it's still winter, and spring is starting to approach, there's a certain point where you can see this for yourself, can't you? You can see that there's a sensing of something in the air. You can't explain it, but you know it's there. You can see the flowers beginning to bloom a little bit, or the greenery appearing. The weather is not so chilly every day, just a little bit higher till it's coming up to beautiful springtime weather. I give you that as an example and as a guide. I've used the physical to introduce you to a new state in the invisible, in yourself. This is very personal. Everything you hear, of course, it's very personal. It's for you. And you see that. Watch how fast the winter within turns to springtime. How how you will become aware of how you have lived since a little child, and you didn't know what was going on. How many don't know what's going on now? You don't know what's going on now. To know that you don't know what's going on is honesty. And the angels sing and rejoice when one individual human being becomes so honest that it jolts him. And then you won't know what to do with it, but look, does springtime need you to be springtime? Well, I think a lot of maybe gardeners do. Built into natural laws of gardening, of forestry, of weather, is the fact that winter turns to spring and greenery. Built into the spiritual system of life is the fact that spiritual springtime is waiting for you to want it, and then it will appear. You don't have to create the greenery as if we can. You don't have to change the month from February to May to make it happen. What you have to do, and remember this please, what you have to do is to be tired of being cold, tired of the icy fingers of winter and the inner blizzards and storms. I tell you, if you are knowingly, consciously weary of being where you are and what you're doing, if you no longer want winter, that is tremendous. That's a request. That's a prayer. That's an acknowledgement that I can't do anything for myself, by myself. Don't be afraid of saying that. And I'll tell you something else. You don't have to say it with the desperation that I used as an illustration physically a few seconds ago. You don't have to go through that. You will go through it unless you're awake and understand that you don't have to go through it. But because we don't know, why should you be frantic and desperate and tense and nervous over inviting springtime? You should be delighted. You should be pleased. Oh, yes. You should be cheery. When's the last time you've been cheery? You try it sometime, it won't hurt. People are afraid of leaving the glum weather of winter. You know why they're afraid? Because they have not traveled internally far enough to know that there can be a new beginning, a new awakening. They have not traveled far enough in the inner, invisible spiritual calendar to know that there is a spring. I want you in this talk today, on this Sunday morning, I want you to wander inside yourself, and in all the snow and the ice and the dark clouds and the thunder of the lightning, I want you to deliberately walk into the storm, right in the middle of that big snowy, icy field. You will see one little flower. One! And you can have it right this morning.
If you want it. If you want it, you can have it this morning. You can have it right now. Right now. Time is no barrier. Your entire past life, how many years, whatever you've lived here on earth, that has no barrier at all. And I want you to know that you can see that one little flower coming up all around the snow. Now you know, now you know if there's one flower, there can be two, there can be 10. And you also know with the melting, this will be familiar to you, I know, with the melting of the hardened heart, then comes the melting of the ice and the snow. I'm using figures of speech, and they're very apt, and I want you to connect the figures of speech and the illustrations with the internal, invisible world. You will know that something can change you for you. When you see the first buttercup, or whatever the flower is, when you see that first one, you know very well you don't have to hasten spring. You don't have to do anything about it. You just have to, in either case, whether it's a physical world or the interior invisible world, you just have to, this will sound familiar to you, make it meaningful as well. When you see that first flower, you know all you have to do is wait on God. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice to know you don't have to get the shovel and try to get the snow out of the way yourself? See how much, can you take that one thought and see how much effort you're putting into your life, that it is doing nothing for you except wearing you out. You considered home, which means to sit where you belong inside yourself. And as long as you do not make an effort yourself to hasten spring, if you make no effort yourself, everything will be done for you. It won't work until you stop work. See, the mind is so vain, so sure it knows what to do. The book had 10 steps to happiness. The trouble is, last week it was 5 steps to happiness. Everything increased it by 5. And you're worried it's going to be 100 steps to happiness next time. All right. Work to do. And I've already given a light indication that your primary preliminary work is to identify what within you is preventing you from allowing springtime to arrive. Thoughts are going through your mind right now. You're thinking, you're reacting. What was it? What did I think? When you do that, when you're watching every minute, you'll be able to separate the winter thoughts from the springtime thoughts. Your whole inner machinery, ideas will become clearer to you, and then you'll be able to choose the one over the other. You'll be able to get yourself out of the way because you've understood that the winter was in you. And if the winter was in you, then you have to do the work. You don't have to blame anyone else anymore. Look, all this business of looking outward and even hoping that someone else can do something for you, all that will fall away by itself as your interesting, fascinating game of thought watching, emotion watching becomes both a power and a pleasure. And you can now take, as a simple fact, that you can be the strong one in any situation, no matter where you go or what you do. You can have all power, all wisdom, because you understood, first of all, that you had of yourself, of your own human personality, you had no power and no strength and no wisdom. The realization of helplessness, the realization of helplessness without the feeling of helplessness is this great secret, is the great answer. You can do it. Right now you can do it. You give up your acquired concepts about yourself. You abandon your own answers. And again, I promise you, you will have the guarantee of God Himself that the real answer, the real springtime, the real healing will come to you. There'll be no vanity in it, no pride over it, because you know from yourself when you have it that it is a gift only, a gift that you allowed to come to you. Inspiring impressions. I'd like you to take the following exercise with you as you go out of here today. Throughout your life, since you were a boy and a girl, you have had inspiring impressions. That is, you went somewhere or you read a book and you heard or read the truth. You heard the facts of the matter. They inspired you. They were inspiring impressions, but in younger years we have so many other important things to do, right? To make a million, to get married. All the great plans we have for life, hoping that they're going to turn out right, and there's anxiety already because they were our plans for it. But I want you to think, if you can't do it now, I want you to, when you go out of here, when you have a little more time to give it full thought, I want you to think of a certain word or phrase that someone said to you, or you saw on a motto on the wall, anywhere at all, and when you heard that, it gave you an inspired impression. In other words, hey, that's right. That's right. And then it went away fast, right? Because you had to go on to the next business of life. You do that at home, and here's why. Because when you do that, that will start a stream of other remembrances. This is the right use of memory now. You will get other memories of how the truth spoke to you at one time, and then you went on your way. But you get a whole collection of them together. They will begin to come together into one stronger force, and it'll be very helpful to you. I'm going to give you a personal example of that. Some years ago, when I was a boy, I lived in Los Angeles, in the section of Los Angeles called the Highland Park section. And I went to Luther Burbank Junior High School on North Figueroa Street in Los Angeles, which probably some of you recognize. Junior high school, I tell you, junior high school boys, they're only interested in having a sugar donut in one hand and a bottle of pop in the other, and thinking about the baseball game, right? Oh, what do you girls think about? I'll leave that to you to answer, ladies, when you were a junior high school girl. Did you think about boys, for example, and wonder about it? The boys were wondering about you, too. One day we had a homeroom class, and you know what that is. Had a homeroom class, and the regular teacher was out of the room for the day, gone for the day. So we had a substitute teacher in the homeroom with this all-boy classroom, all boys. And he was part of the regular staff, but he was just filling in for the day. And I remember an inspiring impression that came to me, and hopefully to the other boys in there, about 30 boys, 12, 13, 14 years old. But I can see it now. This gentleman teacher was kind of leaning against the desk standing in front of us, and wasn't giving any particular lesson in geography or history, but he stood there, and for maybe 10 minutes, he began to tell us about something that we as boys hadn't paid much attention to before. We were more interested in the toy glider we were making. Do you know what he talked about? He talked about being a good human being. He talked about there was enough sadness and sorrow in this world without us growing up and adding to it. He talked to us about having ordinary good manners, about being polite. He talked to us about the need to be kindly, to not hurt anyone else. I sat there, and it inspired me. I'd never heard anything put quite that directly before. And I didn't know at the time that he was giving preliminary lessons in the higher life, in a spiritual life. Because you know, don't you, that when you're spiritual and in charge of yourself, when you know who God is and are living with the Holy Spirit, you don't have to be rude to other people. You don't have to try to take advantage of them. You have no need to be curt with them. He talked to us, boys, please, now and when you grow up, please be a pleasant man. You know that word pleasant covers so much, doesn't it? Think about it. Now, you meet someone who's pleasant. How nice. The word itself is nice. He's pleasant. That means you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be tense over it. The man, the woman is simply pleasant. How nice. Has it ever occurred to you of the utter lack of common pleasantness and goodness and decency in this world? Human beings, men and women, are so eager to prove themselves. I've got to go out and make my mark before it gets any later. I've got to do it now. All that, the lessons and the inspiration came to me. That was a long time ago. And it was so inspiring, so marvelous. I listened to every word, and no doubt the other 29 or 30 boys in the room did the same thing. He spoke very casually, very calmly, wasn't trying to force anything down. He simply gave us the beautiful facts of the matter for our benefit. You know, I even so impressed by it that I remember the teacher's name. His name was Carl Link, C-A-R-L-L-I-N-K. Thank you, Mr. Link. He won't know, of course, that he started something in motion with those 30 boys. He didn't know that he was starting something that could eventually, as those boys grew up, begin to turn that winter time of human nature into the spiritual world, spiritual springtime. He didn't know it, but do you know what his reward was? I know what it was, and I want you to think about it. Here he was, an adult teacher, maybe taught mathematics or English. I don't know what he taught. He was just in there for a few minutes, and then those few minutes, and those 10 minutes, he gave us something literally out of this world. And you know what his reward was? And I want you to connect it with your idea of what it means to be rewarded in life. His reward was that it came from a pleasant, sincere, good nature that naturally, easily, nicely overflowed into the room. I'm sure Mr. Link also understood that he had done his part. And this is what we want to think about too. His reward was being a good man. There is no other reward being a good man, a good woman. Don't look for it. Goodness is a virtue. Goodness is a spiritual force, a power, a gift. We know the opposite of goodness and pleasantness, don't we? Oh, do we know that? We know how we feel persecuted, or we feel that we know all there is to know, don't have to learn anything new. We know all about that. And we also should have an awakening of how a negative spirit, a nice inner nature, how badly it hurts. Oh, listen to this. When we are good, when we are not, I love ideas of being good, pleasant. That reward will last. It can't be taken away. Now, I want to ask you a question. What more do you want from life than to be true, than to be pure, than to be a nice person to live with yourself? When you are, there will be no need to go out and preach and teach to the world. Your goodness will naturally overflow. Oh, I tell you, people will be very surprised to meet you when you're good. It's such a rare commodity. But they really will. People, you go into a room full of strangers that, you know the first thing they do? They look at you physically, look at the expression on your face, notice what you do with your hands. They're sizing you up. They're sizing you up to see whether it should be aggressive toward you or defensive, or what they might be able to get from you, all that. From now on, wherever you go, you're going to be different because you've allowed the Spirit of God to come in and live your life for you. When you walk into that room, wherever you go, whether it's home or office, because the Spirit of truth is telling you what to think and what to say and how to respond. That is what it means to be virtuous. That is what it means to authentically help mankind, and there is no other way. You as a person overflowing the goodness of God to other people. And that's all you need, and that is also what will last. Go to work, please, on everything, and remember the exercise to think of the inspiring impressions that you heard when you were younger. Bring them all together and connect them with all the rest of the talk. It will work in your favor every time.
Please go on to tape B.